Mm. So, welcome everyone to the special broadcast on FOAMAP. We're trying out the Google Hangout platform this time. Basically, what we're going to do today is walk through a general status on Foam, get some updates on what is going on, and also Katja is going to run us through some of the new features that will be implemented within the next release of FOAMAP. And Ryan is going to walk us through proof of use and answer some questions from the community. If you have any questions, please ask them in the YouTube field, in the YouTube chat, and we'll make sure to answer them at the end of this call. So for general updates, Brandon, who many of you know and hold dearly, is on vacation right now. Daryl is helping out additionally in tech support. We're trying out two new kind of platforms. One is what we call the Map Guide, which is a help center, especially for the FOAMAP. After hearing feedback from the community, we've added some new guides on there, especially the pairing guide was something that a lot of people gave feedback on, and we hope that this version implements a lot of that feedback. Yeah, it's been great kind of talking to you over the platform and iterating on what we've been putting out. Secondly, we're also using Zendesk for support ticketing, and is something that is working well. In the future, we're also going to start a new discussion forum on discussion.foam.space. It's not online yet, where the community can have more technically specific conversations, and also we will have special threads for individual bugs and stuff where you can follow, basically. In other news, and I'm going to go through a few things. We're one of the main sponsors, a gold sponsor of the OpenStreetMap conference, State of the Maps 2018 in Detroit, Michigan. That's from October 5th to October 7th. We're also going to do a mapathon. We're going to release more information on that soon. Yeah, we hope to see many of you there. Also, we've launched a bounty partnership with Gitcoin that is funded partially by, or funded wholly by a grant from the Ethereum Community Fund. If you're a PureScript developer or interested, I just pasted it earlier today, or Ryan did, in our Telegram. You can also find it via our Twitter. So yeah, we'd love for the community to become involved in that. Also, we've seen that a lot of activity in the local communities, and we of course want to have that happen more. So if you are part of a local community and want to start one, please ping me on Telegram, and let's get that ball rolling. It's been really nice to see how the local communities have started organizing locally on the mapping on the last week since launch. Without further ado, I'm going to give over to Katja, who's going to walk us through some of the features that will be released in the next release. I'm going to switch here. Katja.
Hello, everyone. It's amazing to see the map live, and we see a lot of points pop in. I want to add one thing to what Arthur said before regarding support. Please email support@foam.space if you have technical issues. Please don't email info@foam.space. Only use info@foam.space for general inquiries, not related to FOAMAP. Okay, and I'm going to share my screen. Let me know if you can see the screen. Arthur or Ryan? Okay. I assume that you can see the screen. Well, as we can see, we have now points in different states after a map being live for about a week. We see some green verified points here. This is how the interface looks right now. I'm sure a lot of you started putting points, got a little bit familiar with the interface. We have search component, and then we also have a user view that we call dashboard. And on the dashboard, we have your assets card, and we have what we call list card. And I'm going to walk through a few changes that will be done to those three components. Okay, and I want to point out that there is no such thing as new release. I think the update's going to be rolled out weekly, and I'm going to show what are we working on. For example, my assets card. I can say that like some features going to be available this week, and some features going to be available a little bit later. So it's going to be updated every week. And so here's a new My Assets card, which has added functionality. So here, same as you can see right now, you need to approve foam tokens, right, in order to use them in the app to create points or initiate a challenge. So here you're gonna see also some of statistics of points that you created. You're gonna see the amount, the points that you created in pending state, verified state, and challenge state. Also, we're gonna add here's a tab that's called rewards. So this will be the tab for claiming your voting rewards. So if you voted on the winning side, so here you will see the points in challenges that you voted on the winning side, and you would have to claim reward for each voting poll. So it's just going to be balance of the reward, like amount of the reward, and then you would have to click and initiate MetaMask transaction to get a reward, and you would have to do it for each point. Okay. Then we're also gonna add the section where you would be able to withdraw your voting credit. So in order to participate in the voting, you have also approved foam tokens to use in voting. And after you're done with voting, if you don't want to vote anymore, you would have here an option to withdraw those tokens back into your wallet out of voting contract, right? And as I'm sure a lot of you already familiar with the process of committing and revealing your vote, in case if you forgot to reveal your vote and your tokens stuck in the contract, there will be here also the tools to unlock those tokens that are stuck in the polls for the votes you forgot to reveal. So that's going to be here. So the next component that we're working on, and will be available very soon, it will be search. You will be able to search by name of your POI, or just the POI that you want to find, and that will bring the list of different points. And we're gonna also add different sorting and filtering options. So you will be able to sort the list by points in viewport, or just search within the entire registry. Or you will be able to filter this list by states of points. For example, filter only challenged points in viewport. Also, you will be able to filter the list and only see the points that you created, also in different states, and some other options as well. And also the other component that will be available once the search goes live is also you will be able to filter points on the map. So you will be able to see only, for example, verified points, or you will be able to see the points by specific tag. For example, to see only points with the tag blockchain, or points with like combination of different tags on the map. Okay. This is all. This all the features I have right now. I'm sure, Ryan, if you want to add anything. Okay. So please go ahead and add.
Thanks for that, Katya. I think probably one of the main confusions, I know there are bugs that some people are reporting about revealing their votes or managing their votes. So in this new My Asset card, which Katya didn't go into too much detail, it's going to be much clearer about how approving tokens and where your tokens are when your voting works. We can make a dedicated post about this, but this partial lock commit reveal voting is kind of not that intuitive, we understand. Just as like a high level overview, why you need to approve tokens is that you're essentially giving the right to the voting registry to use your tokens for voting. And we want to do that once up front so that every time you vote, you don't have to do another MetaMask transaction. So that's the approving tokens, is to reduce this friction. You're able to approve as many tokens as you want, even more than you have. It's just kind of letting the contract know that you want to allow these amount of tokens to be used. And then when you actually conduct a vote in the poll, this actually takes some of your tokens and deducts your balance and locks them into the voting contract. So that's this partial lock aspect of the voting. But these locked tokens can then also be used across multiple polls as long as they're equal or less than the original amount. So for those of you who have then voted a second or third time and don't see your balance change, this is because those are the same tokens locked in the first poll, being able to be used more than once. So in this new My Asset card, you're going to be able to much more easily manage your votes and see where they're locked, when they're expired, and when you need to reveal them, and then ultimately where you can claim the rewards. So that's kind of the goal that we're working on now with this new My Asset card, as a way to do vote management, claim your reward management, and then much easier track your own points, including the pending points. So that's kind of the update that we're looking to push now. Yeah.
Okay, and I guess one little thing that I forgot to mention is that once you create a point and the pending period ended, or like the challenge period ended, you need to update status of your point for that point to change the status. This is how the smart contracts work. Basically, the smart contracts don't run by themselves. Somebody has to update that status.
Yeah, and so we know that that introduces potential friction to the app, but right now that's kind of, somebody needs to tell the contract that it's essentially the timer is over and that status needs to be called to the blockchain so that it then populates to everyone else. In the future, there is an upgrade path, which you can read about in our audit, where new registries can be proposed with different smart contract logic. But ultimately, that still needs to be accounted for. So the way it would be solved was you would be paying more when you first made the point to have it try to execute autonomously. So in the meantime, points need to be manually updated at least once.
Yeah, and I guess the last thing is the governance, which, so basically right now, as you know, TCR contract consists of like set of parameters. For example, the minimum stake deposit, or the pending period time, or vote, like reveal voting period. Those core parameters are described in our map guide. So right now, users can change those parameters, but we're working on the governance dashboard where there will be similar to the challenge way to vote on changing the parameters. So there will be same partial log commit reveal voting mechanism used to for community to vote and to change the parameters. Kind of like I assume that this still won't be available for the next month.
Okay, I think we're just going to pivot now to jumping into the questions that some of you pre-submitted before the call. And once we go through those, we can move to the newer questions being posted in the YouTube chat.
I mean, I think maybe if Ryan wants to do to say anything about proof of use or initial use period, like before we jump into questions.
Sure. I mean, as you guys know, we're currently in an initial use period, which is anticipated to last for 45 days from the time of launch. So essentially, that's a time where tokens are locked and meant for people to get familiar with the application and report bugs and issues, some that have already been worked on and reported. And as mentioned, we'll be opening up this basically discussion board so people can publicly log these issues. Mostly all the smart contracts work really fine, but it's really a matter of indexing backend and getting this data to the front end, and some of that out of our control because Ethereum relies on kind of infrastructure like Infura nodes, and sometimes those are not picking up all the right data. So all the contracts are working, and we're working now on refining the interface, adding these new features, and allowing people to conduct proof of use. As you know, proof of use requires everyone to add at least 10 points to the map. And then in addition, there are certain kind of usage thresholds which can be achieved by either staking more into points or waiting for signaling to come, which will come in a few weeks as well. We're also adding basically a proof of use monitor aspect, so that right now you have to basically manually calculate if you've conducted 10 points or not, and your percentage threshold. So we'll have basically a way to monitor if you've achieved that or not, and you'll ultimately know that you've achieved it because you'll be able to withdraw your tokens from, and the token controller would allow you to do so. So it's kind of the ultimate test of knowing if you've achieved proof of use or not. We can answer in specific if anyone has any questions here in the chat about how pairing works. But otherwise, if you click the chain kind of link button at the top right, you're able to pair a hardware wallet or a cold wallet to a MetaMask. And there's a guide in our guide for that, but happy to answer any specific questions.
Yeah,
sure.
I guess.
Jump into some questions that reacted right to that. In that signaling portion as a way to influence basically where you want people to be working on dynamic proof of location, that would affect future rewards in that location. And so basically how it works with proof of use is if you have a percentage of your tokens you need to achieve for that, it can be achieved by signaling them, which is essentially a way to deposit them into a location. Which would affect future rewards or incentives in that area. And so your tokens are never at risk while signaling, except for the opportunity cost of locking them up. So that works into proof of use as well, and it'll be available before this 45-day period is over. Okay, I'm just going to start going through the questions, and then hopefully we can get to all of them. So the first question someone submitted is, what's the incentive for people to use 50 tokens to list a point of interest? And I know there's a lot of general questions around incentives, and we're working on a current post to kind of highlight our thinking around the design of the protocol. But the ultimate answer is like, you're not actually paying the tokens because you still own them. And the minimum deposit is meant to be a kind of SAM prevention mechanism and a way to have skin in the game so that people actually adding to the map have something at stake to know that if it's true or not. And as Katya mentioned, this is a governable parameter. So right now it's kind of set to 50, which has some sort of reference value based on the token sale price. But as the value of the network either grows or decreases, token holders can vote to change this minimum deposit if they feel it was too high or too low. But it's really like a driving mechanism of making sure that the contributions to the map have some sort of skin in the game behind them. But you as the owner of the point can then either boost your deposit or withdraw it up to the minimum deposit. And as I'll get to later on in the call, there are other kind of ways that as this protocol can hook into applications and have other ways to generate revenue as a point owner. But the next question of what is the point of approving tokens? What would cause a token not to be approved? So as I mentioned, approving tokens is a way to interact with the voting smart contract. You essentially just need to let this contract know that you want to allow it access to your tokens. There's not really a scenario where your tokens would not be approved. This is just a mechanism of telling the application on the blockchain that you want to be able to vote. So that's why we have this pre-approved functionality. So you're basically granting access to the voting contract, your tokens. The next question is about localization, saying someone lives in Barcelona where there's 2 languages. How can we treat that? Right now, we're only supporting one basically text field. So users can pick which kind of language they want to utilize. And it can be up to the rest of the curators if that's sufficient or not. In the future, we'll look to support multiple ways of adding different language supports, translations, as well as like editing the metadata. And the next question is if we could consider separating cartographer and end user view, or is it developers part of the work? Well, essentially, as the end user, you can eventually, we'll add this very easily that you can hide the menu screens. So as a consumer, you just have the map and you can look at it and interact with the points. You don't even need any tokens to do so, or have MetaMask to interact with it in that sense. Well, you probably need MetaMask. But anyway, it kind of is separated in that consumers can look at the map, or any smart contract can make a call and reference the map, where the cartographers have these more robust kind of dashboard features and functionalities to actually do the curating work. And the next question I see is, when would it be possible to challenge the details of a POI if the POI is correct, but there's a typo or there's an error? That's really, again, up to the challenger. If they feel that that's like a sufficient error and something that shouldn't be there, they can either initiate a challenge, or through the discussion boards we're going to be opening, essentially make a post about it and see if they can get the attention of the point owner, and maybe they would remove the point themselves to not be challenged if there can be this kind of off-chain coordination. And the next question is, when would it be possible to stake additional tokens to increase its quote-unquote rating? So that's already possible. If you're the owner of a point that's been verified, you can basically add more of a deposit to it. And what will be coming in the future update is the actual visual front-end ranking. So that means that the visibility of points at different zoom levels will be affected by how many tokens are actually staked. So the token curator registry has a ranking component. And that's purely a front-end tool based off the amount staked. And just as a note, anyone can make their own interface based off our tools or their own that would visualize this registry as well. Because the contracts and the registry are on the blockchain, and map.foam.space is kind of our hosted interaction interface with that map. But anyone could make their own that displays the points differently or adds different filters. The next question is if there's a way to merge duplicates on the map, or how do we vote wrong duplicates? Right now, there is no way to merge it. As mentioned, if you think that it's a mistake there are duplicates, we can try to develop forums or ways to interact with point owners to get them to manually remove it. But otherwise, again, it's going to be up to the challenger and the community of voters of which points they actually think are correct if there are duplicates. And the next question of why would you want to stake more than the minimum? You may not, and that's fine, and you just want to basically be contributing value to the map. But as we further make the interface more robust and introduce these ranking functionalities, you may want to stake more to be more visible on the map, depending on your priorities of your points. And to the question if there's a known list of bugs, there's a known list of us internally of people who have been helpful in reporting them on Telegram and through the Zendesk help support system. But those aren't public to everyone, and that's why we're going to be opening this help discussion board so that the questions and errors will be more publicly known. So that's something we hope to have up this week. And again, the next question of how picky can we get when challenging? Again, that's really going to be up to the challenger and a function of how much they want to put at risk if they actually think that it's worth nitpicking over a very small error or if it's a very egregious error. And so the next question I see is, can we go through exactly what is needed for proof of use? This is covered in our guide and the terms of the token sale, but for now, it's everyone has to add 10 points. So you need to go through adding 10 unique aspects, and then depending on your threshold of how much you've purchased, you have to use a certain %. And as mentioned, we'll be adding this kind of tracker so that you'll be able to see if you've achieved proof of use or not. The next question is proof of use required every time a token changes hands? The answer is no. Proof of use is only applied essentially to those who participated in the token sale. And so for these first cartographers who own the token, they have to interact with the protocol in this way and prove their intention of using it as a purchaser. But after this proof of use period, if you exchange the token, proof of use only applies to the first holder, not from then on out. And what is the timeline for signaling? As mentioned, we hope to have that available by the end of this 45-day period. So that's by the end of October. And that is definitely correlated with dynamic proof of location. We were not really able to publish much on our research prior to the token sale, but we have made a lot of progress on the Foam custom developer boards. And we basically plan to release that research in conjunction with the launch of signaling. Okay, that was all the questions that were basically pre-submitted. So I'm going to essentially revisit the YouTube chat to try to address some more. Or if Arthur, you have anything you want to jump in with?
No. I think most of the questions in the chat have been answered. I think most of them have been answered. One is Cisco or another company using Foam yet. We have a bunch of partnerships lined up, but we'll go out with more as dynamic proof of location gets rolled out. We're going to partnerships. Yeah, if you see any more questions. I think that's about everything. Is there something more you want to bring up in the call, Katja or Ryan?
I can mention one thing. I'm currently in Moscow, and on Monday we did very little, kind of like not formal meetup in Russian language, and we recorded my presentation, which we're gonna post soon for all Russian-speaking community members.
So one question I see is about people voting more or trying to influence challenges and rewards. So this is one of the reasons why we turned against direct inflation for TCRs, because ultimately the work being done as cartographers, while with the aim of building an objective map, is still done by subjective people, and things could be challenged incorrectly or found out too late. So we found that mechanism to be too difficult. And I'm going to be elaborating that on our post. And that's one of the reasons that we already know about some other problems with TCRs. For example, people using their token weights to try to influence votes too heavily. And that's why for TCR 2.0, we would look to implement like punishing people who vote on the wrong side. But that opens up a whole new can of problems which are known in the TCR space and is not something that is essentially solved. So as it stands now, it's going to be up to the work of cartographers to be vigilant, and we'll be building kind of network analytic tools and ways to track reputation to see if it's like a genuine voter or a genuine challenger. And ultimately, people have to kind of protect the value of the network that way until future registries have more robust punishments. So we already are aware that there are potential ways to undermine the system, and we think that adding this kind of inflationary rewards to the subjective work would actually create more perverse incentives to try to drain those rewards or add lower quality points. So there are already kind of enough issues known about, which is why we feel really strongly about the incentive mechanism through value creation, and that's something we're going to be publishing in the next day or two as well. To Paul, yeah, we're going to be publishing our research that was done with Haystack in conjunction with the signaling features and our kind of roadmap of how to get started with the hardware. We're kind of still working through the launch and these interface functionalities that are coming. So once the dust settles, we'll be releasing much more information on the dynamic proof of location. The question about dark DAOs, I mean, that's a really intriguing post. It's quite hypothetical at the moment, but I think the ultimate conclusion was that voting on blockchains are inherently flawed more than normal voting. But one of our thinking is that in this case, kind of bribery doesn't really apply. You would just want to vote yourself. And then ultimately, if we have dynamic proof of location, you could require voters to prove that they are in the locations that they're curating. So that's why, again, the dynamic proof of location is really this objective way to verify everything, where right now we're building a consensus-driven map, but it's still very social-driven. So this is kind of how it stands now, but as we all know, there are plans to build a more robust protocol that everyone can contribute to. I think the Russian presentation would be posted in Telegram and Twitter when it's live.
Yeah, and
yep.
In relation to that, this call will also be recorded and posted on all channels. Yeah, just like the Russian meetup. I think we're pretty much done. Is there any more questions you want to answer, or?
Just address that if you've missed the token sale, as of now, it's not possible to participate, although we are hosting a mapathon at Detroit for the State of the Maps conference. So that would be an opportunity to have a basically giveaway way to participate, and we will be looking for centralized means to essentially bootstrap and incentivize early use, because it's obviously very simple to implement incentives from a centralized point of view, but our main concerns are it's very hard to bake that into the protocol. But after the proof of use period is over, tokens are exchangeable. So for then, if you miss the token sale, you can look for an opportunity to become a cartographer.
Also next week, we want to do another community call and invite more people, start inviting more people from the community and hear stories about mapping from them as part of these calls. We had a lot to go through this week, so we want to go through the full map, but yeah, next week's, we're looking forward to having other cartographers on these calls. So I think that's everything. Thank you so much for viewing, and I'll see most of you next week, or we'll see most of you next week. Thank you, Katja and Ryan, also for. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Bye.